What if the reason you feel older than you are has nothing to do with your diet, your sleep schedule, or your stress levels? What if it starts at a scale so small that it took scientists until the 1960s to even see it, and yet monks and Tibet sages in ancient India and Taoist masters in China were working with it 3,000 years before the first microscope existed? Stay with me, because what you are about to learn connects three ancient practices to one biological mechanism. And once you see the connection, you will understand why everything you have tried before only scratched the surface. Inside every cell in your body, there are structures called mitochondria. You have heard the word. Most people have, but very few people understand what mitochondria actually do, or what happens when they start to fail. Mitochondria are your cellular power plants. They take oxygen and nutrients and convert them into ATP adenosine triphosphate, the actual energy currency your body runs on. Every thought you have, every heartbeat, every moment of physical strength or mental clarity, all of it is powered by mitochondrial output. When your mitochondria are healthy, you feel it. Energy is stable. Recovery is fast. The mind is clear. The body feels capable. When your mitochondria begin to decline, you feel that too. But you rarely connect it to the source. You just notice that the afternoon crash hits harder than it used to. That sleep no longer fully restores you. That recovery from physical effort takes longer than it did 5 years ago. That the mental sharpness you once took for granted now requires effort to access. This is not aging in the abstract sense. This is mitochondrial decline, and it is measurable, documented, and far more reversible than most people are told. Here is what the research shows. ATP production drops by nearly 50% between the ages of 40 and 70 in people who do nothing to intervene. NAD+, the molecule your mitochondria depend on to repair and replicate themselves, falls sharply after the age of 30. Without adequate NAD, your cells accumulate damage faster than they can repair it. But here is the part that changes everything. Mitochondria are not fixed. They are not permanent structures that simply wear out. They respond to signals. They grow, multiply, and regenerate in response to specific biological triggers. Scientists call this process mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of new mitochondria inside existing cells. And the switch that controls it has a name, PGC1-alpha. PGC1-alpha is a protein, a master regulator of mitochondrial production. When it is activated, it triggers a cascade that builds new cellular engines from scratch. More mitochondria means more ATP. More ATP means more energy, faster repair, slower biological aging. The question that occupied researchers for years was simple. What activates PGC1-alpha? The answer, when it came, was surprising. Not because it was complicated, because it was ancient. The two most powerful known activators of PGC1-alpha are controlled hypoxia, deliberate, temporary reduction of oxygen, and specific vibrational stimulation of the vagus nerve and autonomic nervous system. In other words, breathwork and sound, practices that monks, yogis, and Taoist masters have been refining for 3,000 years. Let me explain the three mechanisms, because this is where ancient tradition and modern biology converge in a way that is genuinely remarkable. The first mechanism is controlled hypoxia through breath retention. When you temporarily restrict oxygen through deliberate breath holds, your body interprets this as a survival signal. Cellular sensors, specifically AMPK and HIF1-alpha, detect the drop in oxygen and respond by activating repair and adaptation pathways. PGC1-alpha is triggered. The signal to build new mitochondria goes out. This is the biological foundation of tunnel breathing, the ancient Tibetan practice that Wim Hof later brought to Western scientific attention. A 2019 study from the Netherlands found that practitioners of Wim Hof's method showed measurable reductions in inflammatory markers and enhanced autonomic nervous system regulation, control that researchers previously believed was outside voluntary influence. The breath hold is not the point. The controlled stress is the point. You are giving your mitochondria a reason to multiply. The second mechanism is cold exposure. Cold activates a separate but complementary pathway. Cold shock proteins are released. Brown adipose tissue is activated, and mitochondrial density in muscle cells increases as the body adapts to the thermal demand. Cold and breath hold together do not simply add their effects, they compound them, triggering biogenesis through the simultaneous pathways. The third mechanism is the one most people have never heard connected to mitochondria: sound vibration, specifically humming, chanting. and the specific resonant frequencies produced when the human voice vibrates the skull, the vagus nerve, and the thoracic cavity. Here is the science. Vagal tone, the functional strength of the vagus nerve, directly regulates mitochondrial health through its influence on the autonomic nervous system. Chronic sympathetic dominance, the state of low-grade stress that most modern people live in, suppresses mitochondrial biogenesis. It keeps the body in emergency mode, conserving rather than rebuilding. Vagal activation reverses this. It shifts the autonomic balance toward parasympathetic dominance, the state in which repair, regeneration, and mitochondrial production are prioritized. And the most effective non-invasive vagal stimulator we know of is resonant sound vibration, specifically the kind produced by humming. When you hum at frequencies between 25 and 150 Hz, the vibration travels directly along the vagal pathway. The nerve responds, parasympathetic tone increases, the suppression on mitochondrial biogenesis lifts. 3 ancient practices, 3 scientifically documented pathways. 1 biological outcome, new mitochondria, more energy, slower cellular aging. Now let me teach you the protocol. This is a 3-phase practice. It takes approximately 15 minutes. Do it for the 5 times per week, ideally in the morning before food. Phase 1 is breath activation. This is the controlled hypoxia phase. Sit upright, spine straight, hands resting on your knees. Take 30 deep, full breaths. Inhale through the nose, filling the belly first, then the chest. Exhale through the mouth, releasing completely. Do not pause between breaths. Build rhythm and momentum. You will feel tingling in your hands and face. This is the oxygen shift beginning. It is normal and expected. After your 30th breath, exhale completely and stop. Hold your breath. Do not inhale. Sit in the stillness. Your body will create urgency. Stay calm. Hold for as long as comfortable, ideally 60 to 90 seconds. This is where PGC1 alpha activation begins. When you must breathe, take 1 deep full inhale through the nose. Hold for 15 seconds, pressing the breath gently into your chest. Then release. That is 1 round. Perform 3 to 4 rounds. Phase 2 is cold exposure. Immediately after the final breath round, apply cold water to your face, neck, and upper body for 30 to 90 seconds. This activates the second mitochondrial pathway, cold shock proteins and brown adipose tissue stimulation. The 2 signals together create a compounding effect that neither produces alone. Phase 3 is resonant sound activation. This is what most protocols miss entirely. After the cold, sit quietly and warm for 2 minutes. Then close your mouth, breathe in slowly and deeply through your nose, and exhale with a steady hum, medium-pitched, long, sustained. Feel the vibration move from your throat into your skull and chest. Continue for 5 minutes. This phase does 2 things simultaneously. It activates the vagus nerve, lifting the autonomic suppression on mitochondrial biogenesis, and it floods your nasal passages with nitric oxide 15 to 25 times normal levels, which dilates blood vessels and improves oxygen delivery to the tissues. Your mitochondria just signaled they need to repair. The ancient Tibetan masters practiced all 3 phases within a single morning session. They did not have the vocabulary of PGC1 alpha or vagal tone, but they had the results, and the results are now measurable in laboratories. Here is what to expect. In the first week, most people notice a shift in afternoon energy. The midday collapse softens. Morning clarity improves. Sleep begins to deepen. By week 3, the changes become more structural. Recovery from physical effort accelerates. A baseline energy appears. Not the artificial spike of stimulants, but something steadier and cleaner, the kind that does not crash. By week 8, the adaptation is cellular. Mitochondrial density is increasing. Inflammatory markers are trending downward. The biological gap between how old you are and how old your body is functioning begins to widen in your favor. This is not a promise. This is what the research documents in people who practice consistently. The body does not need to be convinced. It needs to be given the right signal. Let me close with something worth sitting with. 3 civilizations, Tibetan, Indian, Chinese, independently arrived at the same conclusion over thousands of years of internal experimentation, that the breath, the cold, and the voice could be used to fundamentally alter human biology. They described it in different languages, embedded it in different traditions, protected it with different rituals. But the underlying mechanism was identical. Modern science took until the 21st century to begin mapping the biology. PGC1 alpha, vagal tone, Nitric oxide, cold shock proteins, mitochondrial biogenesis. Different words, same truth. Your body is not a machine wearing down. It is a dynamic system waiting for instruction. You have trillions of mitochondria ready to multiply if given the signal, a vagus nerve ready to activate if given the vibration, sinuses full of nitric oxide ready to release if given the breath. The instruction is 15 minutes, 4 times a week. Begin tonight.